Hello, everybody. Good morning, or morning at any rate. This is Anne, and you are back at Reaper Pro Tips. And we have a disembodied voice, Justin, and a very exploded Kiri dog, who really put my morning behind today. So sorry I'm late. Rella, hi. I just saw you pop your little nose in. Rella, we don't do I don't stick to one model for all different consecutive streams. So essentially what you can do is you can always do a paint along because you can go to our Reaper YouTube and we have all of these episodes recorded. So if you go to Reaper YouTube and you search for the Rock Troll 44002, sometimes Justin has the name, sometimes he's got the number. But you should find all of the videos then about this model or any of the other ones I've painted. So essentially you can do a paint along at any point. Because with these guys that I'm working on, although keep in mind that not all of them are start to finish. Like there's some that I use just for an example that I'm not going to finish. So, and then there are some like Rock Troll who has a lot of different, he has a lot of different things that I've done on stream, and I think I'm going to finish him. So, yeah. So, if you see a model, essentially go browse our YouTube, browse Pro Tips. And that should bring you up all my shows, and you should see a whole bunch of different models on there. And then you can search by the specific model to find the first episode and go from there. Because I've been doing a lot of character models, like Juliana the Herbalist. This is one of all the ones. This is the only one we finished on stream, I think. So, Juliana here, if you're looking to do a paint along, let's get her in focus.
It's also important, Miss Anne, to notate that in the YouTube case, not necessarily all of the episodes for a model are in chronological order. So they may say stuff. They're based on the title from the stream originally.
Okay.
So you may have to do so. If you look up Rock Troll for RTB Pro Tips, you can pull up all the videos, but you may have to do some snooping yourself to figure out which videos in which order.
Well, the date posted should help, right, though?
It should, correct. Absolutely. You could use the date on YouTube to figure that out.
Yeah.
Some people want it a lot more obvious.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the YouTube project overhaul that will happen eventually.
Right.
I need to clone myself. I need more people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's definitely things that need to happen, and that's one of them, and we acknowowledge that. So
okay, so there you go, Rella.
YouTube could be better organized. So.
Yeah, but you should still be able to pull everything. You should be able to find everything, and look at the date it was posted, and that should give you a really good guide. But yeah, so this is the only one. Yeah, this is the only model on stream that we have actually painted start to finish so far. We're very close on the Duelist as well, who I'm probably going to go back to maybe tomorrow. But just to give you an idea, if you're really looking for a front to end paint along, that would be it. It's going to be a lot of hours because I do a lot of blending and everything. It depends on your level. I mean, I'm mostly explaining what I do. I explain what I do pretty much almost every stream, but I mean, what I should say, Rella, because I'm not sure of your level, but you should go and watch our free video from ReaperCon, the one where I do thinning MSP paints. You can also search that on the Reaper Miniatures YouTube. It's a class I did for ReaperCon about thinning paints and loading your brush and stuff and getting the various techniques that you need with various paints. It'll show you what a glaze looks like. It'll show you what a wash looks like. It'll show you what layering looks like. These are really important things to know for all of the models that I do. So if you really want to paint along, I would recommend going and watching that class. It's free. It's on YouTube. And then you can have a good grounding in the techniques that I use before you even get into it. Hey there, Vakarota. Thank you for the raid with the 25 people. We really appreciate it. Morning. Yeah, we're going to do Gemstones today. Patience is don't think of it as learning patience. Think of it as just settle down and enjoy what you do and don't get anxious for the end. Patience sometimes can hang people up because it's oh, well, I've never been a patient person. We tell ourselves these things about ourselves just based on, our lives up to this point. But in reality, it's more about just loving what you're doing and taking your time. So you shouldn't have to force yourself to be patient with it. Just try to enjoy what you're doing and try to take each step and learn something. And I think that's of value. It is a mindset switch, though, especially if you've been focused on gaming painting, where the focus really is on, I need to get this done, right? Then it can be really hard to shift to that really leisurely kind of, hey, I can take my time on this model and enjoy it. It can be hard to switch to that mindset, right? So I can totally see that. Oh, okay. Everybody does, Rella. Everybody does that. All of us. Even the high-level, international award-winning, my boyfriend who's won crystal brushes, all of us. We all do that. What's key is then, do you push through? Or do you just let it sit on a shelf somewhere for 3 years? And if you eventually go back to it, I mean, David does this all the time. He'll complete a mini like halfway, a third of a way, 3/4 of the way through. He'll lose interest in it. He'll put it aside. But then sometime, like, he just finished a model that had been sitting around on his shelf for 3 years. So, you know, it's don't consider it a fault or anything. You know, it doesn't mean you won't pick the model up again, but be aware that that's something that we all encounter, and how we deal with that determines how many models we actually get done and how much we learn and how fast. So, but yeah, so you are not alone. You are not alone. I'm totally, like, I'm not bored, but I'm kind of, like, out of enthusiasm on my Rocket Girl right now, for example. And I know if I pick her back up and start working on her, I'll probably get enthused about her again. But right now it's really hard to do it. So I feel it, right? I totally am in that boat a lot with my own projects. Goes into the drawer, yeah. You get bored before you fit it. Well, that's because base coating is the most boring part of the model, Kerniko. That's why I paint in sections, see? That way, I have one section of the model completely done, and I don't have to look at a base-coated model. Like, I get to do the fun stuff in the same session as I base-coated an area, right? That's my strategy. Do you understand now? Yeah, try doing it like I do it. Yeah, I mean, what you do then, Rella, is if it bothers you, like maybe it doesn't bother you that you have a bunch of half-finished minis. If it doesn't, then, you know, you go. As long as you're enjoying the hobby, it doesn't matter. But if you want to finish things, then what you could do, instead of picking up a brand new project, is from time to time open your drawer and look at your half-painted stuff and go, oh, I like this guy, I remember this guy, and maybe pick up that instead of starting yet another new project. David does this. This is a strategy that David does. And it you know, he still has a ton of half-painted projects, but it does work. He does actually finish some of the stuff because he did love the project when he started it, right? So it's not like you're forever going to just be bored with it. Your mindset will change. Right, and sometimes that happens, right? Like there are some models that you start that you're just going to blitz through. David's Wolfie guy that he's working on right now, it's an Infinity. It's the big 75mm Infinity with the big wolf guy, dog soldier, and the female handler with him. He's got that sucker, and he's just busted through it. It's just coming together. And it's because he didn't hit any difficult parts. He didn't hit any frustrating parts as he went through it. And that's why the model's almost done, and in record time. So it really does often depend on, do you hit any parts that are frustrating for you, or where you kind of lose steam, or that are taking too long, right? And then you kind of slow down, and maybe you just don't get through it, which is a shame sometimes because, you know. But, I mean, the bottom line is enjoy your hobby, however you have to. I mean, there are people like, okay, National Novel Writing Month is a great example, right? I do NaNoWriMo every year, and I've done it since 2007. I looked it up the other day. So this is my 13th year. And, I mean, regularly, people in Nano get half-finished novels, and yet they start Nano the next year with a different book idea anyway. And it's not a big thing. They enjoy it, and they learn stuff from it, and they still are making progress on their writing. So it doesn't matter, even if you never finish anything. That said, if you let that become a habit, then it can cease to serve you. If you never get that feeling of completion, that can be bad long term, just because you're going to get in the habit of abandoning a project. Right, exactly. It's a constant fight between understanding that it's okay to let it sit, and then you feel guilty for letting it sit. You should never feel guilty for letting it sit. I mean, there are times when I've actually chucked a figure, where I'm like, okay, this is just loading me down too much. I know I'm never going to finish it. I really don't like the model as much as I did when I started it because it's an older model. Am I seriously going to ever pick this up? No? All right, pitch. There are times I do that, and the guilt goes away. It's terrible, but it happens. It's happened at least twice in my life. Well, then just get close, Rella. Most of the time you don't have to worry about, you could do like the rest of us do and just, keep a little bit, like some people take a photo on their phone of the models they were using with the model. That way you've always got it. You could email that photo to yourself with the model's name, and that way you can always search your email folders for it, and then you find it lickety-split. The big thing is to see those kind of barriers and understand what you can do to remove them. right? Because removing barriers to learning is one of the key parts of getting better. And so if you find that you throw up barriers like that for yourself that prevent you from finishing something, even if you would want to, that's when you should maybe strategize and figure out, okay, well, how can I remove that barrier really easy? I can take a photo, I can put the title, I can email it to myself with the title of the figure. Boom, done. So that kind of thing. And that's super easy and doesn't take much time. So strategies like that, like talk to your fellow people on Twitch and forums and wherever else you hang out on social media on miniatures, and they'll give you lots of strategies for how to get around those things. Yeah, Kariniko just said what I just said. Haha, Vekaroha. Yeah, you did live them on so they can taunt you. Yes. Well, see, that's why I don't paint the eyes first, Vekaroha, because if I don't paint the eyes, they can't stare at me. This is actually the root of why Anne doesn't paint the eyes first, guys. That is really it. Is the minute I paint the eyes, then they can stare at me accusingly while I'm working on something else. All right, let's get painting. This is fun, and it is hobby related, so I don't mind. So Rock Troll, we're back to Rock the Troll because he's so close. Like he's so good. But you know what? We're gonna tackle these crystals. Yeah, I was late going on too. Well, yeah, really, gotta. Logic is, for me, logic is how I overcome my gut silliness. Like, my silly gut wants to convince me that, oh, well, maybe we're just not meant to finish this model. Maybe there's just too many barriers. Maybe it's too hard, And in reality, my silly gut is just being lazy. And so I look for logic and beat it back and tell it to shut up. I mean, let's face it. If we didn't have to finish things, humans would never finish anything. All right, we're working with black indigo, eldritch purple, and our white is vampiric mist. I may go to a pure white on these. When you go up to on metal or crystal or anything that's super shiny, it does really require that pop of pure white to look shiny. These are carrying pretty well because there's nothing else light on the model. So since the contrast is so great, this is reading as a pure white even though it's not. But I may go and do a final highlight. Yeah, I have a ton of confrontation, and I really have to ask myself, Kariniko, if I'm going to actually get them done. I pruned my collection hugely before I moved. But even then, they're so old, and I like them, but do I like them as much as the sexy new models that I'm getting from these Kickstarters? I don't know if I do. Not anymore. Like, back in the day, I loved painting those. And then, of course, you've got the whole collectible aspect. You can't get them anymore. So I don't really want to trash them, right? But then they're sitting, taking up space in my closet. I've got a bunch of Confrontation Wolfen. Some of the best Wolfen models. But yeah, it's just you look at it and you're just like, will I ever? I have one already, Wolfie, my bluish Wolfie that I painted, for a competition ages ago. That was the last Confrontation Wolfen I painted to a high standard. But I just don't know. I'm going to do 2-to-1 off the bat for my paint. So 4 drops of color, 2 drops of water in each one. We'll start with that. Yeah, Gamma Goblins, I probably will, if I do that sort of thing, it's probably going to go to eBay and I'll give everybody a heads up. I don't know. I could also do it via my Patreon, I suppose. Just have a private auction thing, because I have some really good and kind of some of the rarer pieces as well. But yeah, I'm debating with myself after I recently pulled out one of the Wolfen to do that fur tutorial on, and I'm like, am I really gonna paint these? Am I really? They're big metal slugs. Yeah, there's a lot of nice wolves. The one that David is painting, that's from, I keep forgetting the company that's doing the Infinity IP, but with busts and larger models. So the wolf soldier that David is painting right now is gorgeous. But I even had to ask myself, I'm like, would I really paint it? Like, I was tempted to pick it up when I saw how beautiful and large it was when he got it in. It's immense. But then I just had to seriously look at myself and go, really? Are you gonna? I've gotten pretty hard on myself because we have so little room here. And I had to add some white to that puddle of Eldritch Purple because I kind of wanted a halfway color between. You can see how Eldritch is. I wanted a halfway color kind of in between to make kind of an amethyst color. So, mixing up my stages here. Because there was a big difference between this Eldritch, Pure Up Eldritch, which is very transparent, but it's a very beautiful, rich color, and the white. So I wanted something kind of halfway between that I could start blocking in beginning highlights on before I go up to the white. Yeah, they're so hard to find now, Gamma. Yeah, I know. That's why I don't want to get rid of them. I'm just like, even though I know they're taking up so much room, I'm just like, but I'll never be able to get these again. Ever. So that's really the thing that determines sometimes whether I keep a thing or not. All right, so guys, what we're going to do, and we kind of already did this. So our strategy for today is to get some of this stuff sorted out. You see on the back that I already did a highlighting thing, right? And really the object here is to look at where the light is coming from on this big crystal that was our first crystal that we painted, and duplicate it on every other crystal. Just make sure the light is coming from the appropriate place and hitting the appropriate place on every other crystal, even if it's just a little spot highlight on a little gem. If you look at a 2D artist's work and they're painting something like this, a forest of gems, what you're going to notice is that they pick out a couple of the biggest and most, front gems and do a great job on them. And the farther away you get, the more everything kind of gets just spot highlighted and not blended. Right? They go down in the level of detail as they get away. Now, you can use that same thing in this sort of treatment on miniatures. So essentially you pick the biggest crystals and the ones that are most to the front, and you do a good job on those. You do a really good job on them. But when it comes to some of these little ones that are kind of buried, or the ones that are farther back, then you're gonna not do as much on them. Same here. Like, I'll probably do these 3 big guys will get the full treatment, and then these guys will get more like the spot treatment, like I did on the arms here. And the great thing about this is that you only need to give the eye one example of where you're going that's recognizable, and the human eye, the observer, will fill in the rest. So even if you only paint a total of 7 crystals really well on this model, the fact that you have those there and then you are doing similar highlighting and shading and colors on these means that people will see these as little crystals because they are the same color and they have the same sort of treatment as those, even though they cannot be painted to the same level. So you never, sorry, catching up on chat. If I pause, I'm catching up on chat. My brain cells are limited today. David was restless all last night. I slept okay, but I didn't sleep very long because we were up late watching, the news. And then Kiri with her explosions were really disruptive this morning. So if I track a little weird today, guys, it's because I'm probably tired. So I'm looking at this, and I actually do have a mold line that I did not catch. So I'm going to grab it now. And since this is Bones Black, it's very scrapable. But part of it is recessed, so if I wanted to come in and fix this entirely, I would probably need to bring some green stuff in. And again, I do a lot with my knife. You guys who are in my paint along on Tara will notice that I do a lot with my knife to start out. Because the knife can just take off material easily, and then I spend some time cleaning it up. So I think I got most of it there. There's still some gritty stuff around this little gem up front. And the challenge here will be to remove it without impacting the tiny gem. So I'm going to get my stiff bristle brush, which is super cheap Hobby Lobby bristle brush. But it's so good for scrubbing off some of this powdery leftover from filing or knifing or anything, and it'll remove all the bits and tell you what you still have to work on, what you still need to remove. Like, then you can see what you're dealing with. And it's stiff enough that I can really scrub at it, and sometimes I can take off those little threads or bits that are kind of clinging on. Sometimes, though, we need to continue to cut it off. Yeah, I've got a little thread there. There we go. I think I got it. No, it's still fighting. Still fighting. It's very determined. There we go. That's a little better. I think that'll work. Yeah, I don't know about the Signum thing, but given my weak spot for Wolfen, I think I'm not going to look them up. I'm going to resist. I've fallen into so many Kickstarters this year, which is very much a reversal from past several years where I've just avoided Kickstarter like the plague. So I'm making an effort here. So okay, so we got that mold line more or less removed enough, and now we can come back in and kind of base coat over the top. Kind of note where maybe we want some shadows or highlights. I'm using black indigo to shade between a lot of these gemstones just to get a shadow in and some contrast. That makes the gemstones stand out a little bit more. Oh, it happens all the time, Rilla. As you can see, I don't sweat it. I just deal with it. Again, it's something we all do. It's like really at that point, the priming step is just the finding more mold lines you misstep. And since these bones I don't prime, I'm always going to be finding little bits of something that I've missed. It's just I've gotten used to it at this point. But it's an opportunity for me to talk with you guys about how I do mold line removal. Like I said, if you're on my Patreon and you're on the paint along tier, you see me do this a lot. But if you're not, then you may not know. So here we got an interesting area. I painted it on both sides as if it's green. But really, they're probably little gemstones, but I'm going to actually pretend they're not. I'm going to pretend that this is where the kind of craggy parts from his skin move into the craggy parts of his hair. Technically, all of those little sideburns should probably be purple, but as I painted them green on both sides, I'm going to draw a demarcation line here. I'm going to give him a mohawk instead of sideburns. It is my prerogative. I can give my troll a mohawk if I want. So I'm just like darkening down now this line between the skin and the gemstones. Now we're going to go through, let me see, I just want to make sure I've got enough shadow on that mold line so that I can block it out. And now we're going to go through and we're going to do what I talked about. We're going to throw highlights on every area, including up here, where it makes sense, where it's coming from that direction or where it's tilted in that direction. Yeah, this is a style I don't usually do, Rella. Thank you. It's more of a European kind of very dramatic light sourcing style. I decided I wanted to go that way with him because it seemed to me that it would be fun. And it's different from my usual style, right? Usually I don't go with, although lately I've integrated more dramatic lighting into my style. It's dating a guy who's all about lighting. I blame David. I love Shadowrun. Hey Iggy, how's it going? Alright, so let's grab our Vampiric Mist and start looking at light. So if we tilt the model, we can very much get an idea where the light is coming from, and we can see which stones we probably should hit. And where on those stones we should probably hit light. Like, this guy's kind of flat. Some of these little pebbly guys are just going to hit a little bit of a highlight. But you want to get the face that's, well, facing the light. And if you're not sure, you can always just line kind of the top of the facet. If you don't know what would be. But you know roughly the direction. You should always know roughly the direction your light is coming from. For me, it's kind of above and a little bit off center. So it's, as long as you're close. Like, as long as you're close. But putting these highlights on is key to these looking like gemstones. If you don't have the bright highlight that's facing the light, it won't look like a gem. I also kind of want to talk a little bit about expectations today. Like, when you're trying to paint along with me or whatever, or with any artist, right, who's at a really decently high level, and if you yourself are not at that level and are just trying to get to that level, be like gentle with yourself, okay? Because like, don't expect to just because you're being coached by one of the best painters on the planet, don't think you're going to be like Michelangelo overnight, and don't get like really down on yourself if you're having difficulties. It's all a learning thing, right? It's all progress. It's like, it's not, am I painting as good as Anne right out the gate? It's, hey, am I making improvement, right? It's not, are my blends perfect? It's, am I getting better? You know, am I getting, through doing this, maybe a better understanding of how paint works? That sort of thing. So when if you try to do a paint along with stuff from the Reaper stream, do keep that in mind. All right, so mostly you can kind of see that my highlights are veering toward this side and the tops of these crystals. And see how much that makes the gems on his head pop. Just looking at, I didn't even put a real full highlight. It could be Jabberwock. I mean, that's how style evolves. You learn a thing, you integrate it into your style, you learn your way to do it, right? In the old days, that was like blending with me and Jennifer. When I first started learning to blend and layer, my style looked a lot like Jennifer Haley's, because Jen and I were hanging out all the time, and I was directly studying her work. But then I started to diverge from her a lot because my color choices were so different. So I took the smooth blending, but then I took it in a different direction. And my subject matter was a bit different too. So then, you know, you get that, and then you get textures, and you start, you know, you learn textures, and then you start using those in different ways, and, you know, and then you learn XYZ, you know, you continue to evolve as a painter. And it's in the internalization. It's not that I never did lighting before, but I was never really attracted to this overdone lighting that got popular. And you'll see me do this from time to time, where it's just like when OSL was all the craze. I just didn't do it. I didn't find it very attractive, the way that it was being used, until I decided I was going to do it, and then I did it, you know, my way. So it's everybody ends up trying everything, and then you end up finding the things that really speak to you and integrating those into your style. Your style is really a measure of, you know, the techniques that you favor, and the view that you favor, the style, as far as light and dark, right? You've got a light and dark style. You've got, your style is dictated by the colors you tend to use, you know? Jennifer always went pastel. Even now she's more muted and more monochrome than my style. I went very colorful with my style. I tend to paint very saturated. I'm not happy if I'm going super desaturated generally. You know, so things like that. Your brush stroke defines your style. It's gonna determine how your models look in the end, as far as the fineness, like how the blending looks, or you know, just the painterly details of your model is going to be affected by your brush stroke. So style has so many components. I would say this is not a part of my style, Jabberwock, unless I start doing a lot of stuff with this sort of effect. If I start doing a lot of stuff with this sort of effect and lose my Anne-ness a little bit, I don't know. I can see myself pushing my shadows a little more, but I don't know that I would do this on every model. Like, this model lends itself to it. So I could see myself doing it on models where it made sense. But yeah, otherwise, if I look up at, like, I've got Sacrifice and Mr. Grumpy, which are the two last competition pieces that I finished, you know, up above. And then I've got Rocket Girl over there, who I'm still kind of struggling with. And she's a very different style. She is a dramatically lit style. But I wanted to do that because she's a mecha kind of pilot thing. But yeah, I mean, when I go and do some of my new models, like that Art Libra, or the Libris Witch, where is it? Ignis Art. That one, that witch. When I do her, I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of dramatic lighting and shading, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool if you did a paint along with Bob Ross, though. Bob Ross is awesome. All right, so I'm going to bring some more purple in down along the side and the back of the head here. I'm still going to get some light back here, so I have to look at these gemstones and see, because they went very dark, so I'm probably going to have to lighten them up a bit with some lighter purple first. To bring out some of that detail just a little bit. Then you're going to get this kind of hollow between the head and the back, and you're going to lose a lot of light as it goes down. So you don't have to paint everything all the way down into the crevices. It's not necessary. But you do need to kind of define things a little bit where they're easy to see. So that's starting to come out well. So now I need to look on this other side and see what I can do. Some of these gems are going to get just a little bit of light just along like the top. Like this little faceted guy right here. He does have a little bit of a side toward the light. Same with this little guy here. He'll have just a touch of light right there. This one will get just a touch of light there. This one in front's a little bit bigger. So figure out, like, if this is going to hit the light, where it's going to be, so that you can give everybody their little highlight. Now, a lot of over here is going to be dark, because we've established there's a shadow here. We've established there's a little bit of light falling here, because this side of his face does have a little bit of light. But back when you get here, that's where the light's kind of cutting off. So I'm going to be consistent about that. And I'm not going to worry about these crystals back here over this ear where there's really not much light. Which is part of why I don't like dramatic light sourcing like this sometimes, because I don't like leaving a lot of the model dark, but it does look cool, so... Alright, so if we look at what we did here, we have our light entering the gem, and then right around it is going to be a lot of dark. Like, I put some serious black indigo areas up against that, which is going to telegraph that shiny effect. So now I have to think about doing that here. Also, see what I did is I outlined all of these facets with white on this big guy. So for the other large gems and for some of the small ones, just like we did here on our arm where we outlined facets in white, see it? We're going to do that here. And I'm going to re-examine also. I probably first need to put my shadows in. So right up against the light, there's always going to be a dark, and that's going to be black indigo. So if I look at this stuff from this side, first of all, I'm going to kind of line between these crystals. I've got a break here. I'm going to put a shadow there. I'm going to put a shadow here. Shadow here. Shadow here. Kind of go just like I did up here. Put shadow all around the top. Because wherever the light is entering, the area right next to it is going to go dark. And then the light travels through the gemstone, and you end up getting the light pooling down here. I wonder if I can show that with my transparent barrel. Yeah, kind of. See how it's dark at the top, and then you get more light down here? But see that shadow? That's how light diffuses through transparent colored objects. So that's what we're trying to do here, is we're making our highlight, and surrounding and behind that is shadow, and then opposite it is going to be where the light pools inside of the translucent object. So yay for cheapo brush handle being a great example of how light travels through transparent colored objects like gemstones. Nobody is talking in chat today. Are you all watching politics, or are you all just engrossed with gemstones? Or are you all trying to avoid thinking about anything at all? Is everybody hungover this morning? It was a rough night. I tried to avoid all the news coverage. Well, not all of it. I would come in and check it up on it from time to time. But I don't know. The networks, it's just hard for me to watch because they always have to have a storyline, even if they're kind of making it up. And they just keep talking. And then you keep stressing because nothing will be resolved. Little A, little B. Ha ha ha. Hate politics, hate it. No politics allowed. Yeah. We're campaigning a bunch of little leather straps. Good, good. Contemplating life. That's good. Yeah, this morning David was like looking at me. He's like, "Why are you so calm? How can you be?" You know, because he didn't sleep well last night at all because of the election, and I'm just like, worrying is just focusing on the outcome that I don't want. Like, and it might not be the outcome we get. So why should I worry about it? Like, when it's a thing, if the outcome that I don't want happens, then I'll worry. You know, then I'll just have to deal with it, right? But it makes no sense to me to worry in advance about such things. I'd rather focus on the outcome I hope will happen and not be stressed out. Yeah. Oh, cool, Rella. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, a lot of you are working, actually. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, right? It's gonna eventually pan out. We will eventually figure out what happened with the election. And until that point, there's no point in worrying. Like, worrying does nothing. We cannot affect it anymore. We all voted or didn't vote or did whatever our consciences dictated. And so to stress out about it, it's just really counterproductive at this point and useless, right? It's just useless. So I'm with you. Just kind of ignore it. Paint your minis. Some of these are hard to figure out on the facet side. Like, I'm like, all right, so, well, this one's going to be dark. This one's going to be dark. There's generally going to be a lot of dark around the highlight is what you should think. So I'm just trying to get these in. And if I go too dark, if I feel like I put too much dark on at some point, I can always go back and lighten it up. So it's never like I'm never stuck. All right, so now I've see these darks I'm blocking in, right? You can kind of see how the shadows are coming in on these. Right. The art of worrying is just concentrating and giving energy to the thing you don't want. Like, if you think about it like that. If you're worried about something bad happening, you're just concentrating on the thing that's bad. And it hasn't even happened, so there's no point. That's why I try to just try to get the wait and see. I'm not going to stress about this. I'm not going to worry. If something bad happens, then I will deal with it when it happens. But nothing, when it's not actually happened, there's no point in me getting upset about it. It fixes nothing, and it just does things like cost me sleep. So I actually slept pretty well last night, other than Kiri's emergencies popping in. Got us up a bit early this morning. Poor Kiri. She's not having a good day. She hurt herself a little bit. She hurt her hip last night. She hurt it again this morning. Just because every once in a while she'll just like sit awkwardly, or she'll do something. You really can't catch her in time. She's already in the position being unhappy. So poor little Kier. What's up, Doglet? You hear David moving around out there? Speaking of the Kiri, she has stood up. She probably won't blow up again, I hope, because she's had a lot of blow-ups this morning already. Diamonds are actually not really feasible, Rella. Smooth oval gemstones are the easiest thing in the world. Like, that's why I'm doing these angular ones, because pretty much just look up Games Workshop and look at the way they do their Eldar gems, and you've got it. That's how you paint it. It's oval gems are the easiest gemstone in the world. I mean, and the only difference, like, okay, diamonds... The problem with diamonds is they're clear. And unless they're trying to produce a prismatic effect with them, diamonds just look boring when you paint them. Like, they look like quartz. Because you can't equal the transparency or the brilliancy of a diamond on a model like this. So... if you look at, essentially, Rella, the only thing that's different here is like the colors you choose. So let's get my phone out. and do diamond. And do, you know, like images. I always look up images. I started with an image for this. But like a diamond has no color. So really all you're doing if I was trying to paint these diamonds, I would be painting them monochrome. I would paint them black and white and gray. That's all I'm going to do. So diamonds are not really a very exciting gem to paint. The only time you ever see color in a diamond, like they are artificially putting that in there. That's not how diamonds actually look. Like diamonds will kind of reflect and throw back if the colors around them, or if you're using colored light, or if it is a blue diamond, which do exist, you know, but then you're going to paint it blue and it might not look like a diamond. People might think it's sapphire, right? So, but a lot of these models are like reflecting colors in the environment or photo retouch to suggest color. They don't actually, like, it's not actually looking like diamond, right? So if you're doing a diamond, this one has a bit of yellow and blue in it and purple, but they're like either photoshopping that in, probably they're photoshopping it in, or they're putting something in the environment to reflect it. So, you know, that's the problem with diamond, is it's not a color. Unless it has like pink or blue or something in it, but then if you paint your model like that, it's not going to read as diamond, right? So, and ruby, you would do exactly the same as I'm doing here. You would just do, hold on, always go to image search. Like you would, but instead of purple and black and stuff, you would do red and black, or red and stuff. And see how these facets work. See what you've got. Like you've got a light source coming in here. This is not like, they've got to have multi-light sources to get this happening. This one's a little bit more true. That one's perfect. So that's like going across the gemstone. But you can kind of see this. Look at this. Our brightest highlight is up in a dark area, and then you get more light as you go down. And they've got a secondary light source bounce here. So painting gemstones is about learning how light refracts. And trying to learn, like, but all I'd need to do is change to reds for this, and these would look like rubies. Like, I'd use exactly the same techniques as I'm using for these amethyst quartz. And for the amethyst, because this is a solid model and it's not a transparent model, if it was like done in transparent plastic, maybe we could get a little closer to a really transparent gemstone. But because it isn't, I painted these more like quartz, which means I'm suggesting fracture lines. I'm suggesting, you know, that the surface of these is beat up and not polished. You know, so yeah, it's about, I mean, I could paint gemstones till the cows come home on all sorts of surfaces, and people still would be like, but what about this? And it'd be like, just change the color. What's most important if you're trying to play with painting gemstones is understanding how light works. How light will enter, but that you're going to have dark around it, and then it's going to pool in a lower area. If the light is falling like this, that's why we have light down here. Things like that. Like getting the understanding of light is far more important than worrying about how to paint a ruby specifically. At that point, it's the same way you paint an amethyst or an emerald or a sapphire. It is only changing the colors you're using, but you're going to paint it in the same way. And yeah, but for round gems, I mean, honestly, just go look at Eldar. Games Workshop Eldar. That's the game. That Games Workshop gem tutorial is like the one that all of us learned from and the one that all of us used, because that's how it works. That's how it looks. It looks just like my paintbrush does. Let's see if I can get it to work. Yeah, so you got a highlight at the top. You have a little bit of light. I've got two light sources, so this is a little harder. But you're always going to have that weird, like, reflect, if I turn it right, you're always going to have that kind of weird underlight. See where it's going and pooling down on the underside. The light is coming from this direction. Look at a lot of transparent objects. If you really want to know how to paint this stuff, get some examples. Even if it's a faux gem that's just clear plastic. Or look at a lot of pictures online. But the problem with finding pictures online, and I actually had to look for a lot of like quartz cluster pictures to get one that I could use. The problem is that you don't know where their light source is coming from. So sometimes that makes it harder if you aren't sure yourself. Like, you know, should I use this photo because I'm not certain where the light sourcing is? Hey, Ash, how's it going? Chocolate diamonds. No, I haven't, Rella. I haven't had a good gem on a model to do it on because opals are actually my favorite gemstone. I have a necklace with a little tiny bit of opal in it. But yeah, I do love them. Someday I'd like a nice beautiful opal pendant. That would be a piece of jewelry I actually would like to have. I'm not a big jewelry wearer, but there are certain gemstones I think are just gorgeous. But yeah, opal is, the nice thing about opal is it's random. Like, you really, the light just diffuses so much through the surface. You still have to hit your highlight, but there's not as much of a shadow. Like, it's more like the light bouncing around infinitely inside of the gem because opals have a huge water content in them. And that's what spreads out the light and makes it shatter like that. Like, it's like the features of the gem inside, and it's the water content. That's why you get those beautiful rainbows in opals. And why they don't really follow much of a predictable pattern. So if I were going to do an opal, if I had a gem that was the right shape for my example picture, then I'd probably try to paint exactly what I saw in my photo example. Because as far as I've been able to tell, and I haven't like really researched it, because like I said, we haven't really done it. But as far as I can tell, that there's really no map of how an opal will act predictably, because every opal is different on the inside. So you can't really say, oh, well, here's your shadow, here's your highlight, here's your blah. Chibi, actually, I talked to a gem expert when we were in Santa Fe about this, because they had some big opals. And David and I looked at a lot of jewelry when we were in Santa Fe. And she told me that as long as the opal is properly treated by the artist, by the jeweler, before it goes into its setting, you do not need to store them in water. It's only raw opal or opal that has not been properly treated that you must store in water in order to keep them water content. Otherwise, they're fine. They seal them, and the sealer takes care of it. I was worried about that because I'd heard what you had heard, right? That you need to store them in water. But that is absolutely not correct. If you are buying a high-grade opal from a good jeweler, you should never need to do that. Now, if you somehow buff that surface off, then you might have a problem. You might need to reseal it or go to a jeweler and have it resealed. Because then the water will start to, hypothetically, the gemstone will start to dry out if it's no longer protected. But, alright, so let's keep going some higher highlights. Now that we know kind of where we are, I'm going to come in stronger with my highlights. And I'm going to go in and keep working on my shadows. See how I'm switching back and forth between highlight and shadow. Notice the consistency that we've got here, though, guys. We have our light pretty much consistent on where it's falling on these gemstones, and we also are being fairly consistent in our shadows. I haven't done some of them, like this guy. I haven't managed to do that one. Yeah, I'm not certain, Chibi. I didn't go that into it. I just asked her, do you need to store them in water? And so she explained the basics. You could talk to any good jeweler, and they would probably be willing to give you more info. All right, so a little bit darker, and I put some purple in that one too. If you use less of the indigo and more of the eldritch purple in your shadows, your gemstone will end up looking more vibrantly colored because you're saturating instead of desaturating. So what your mileage may vary depending on what you're doing. Oh, sure, Ash. I hope it works for you. Hopefully it helps you to just kind of learn paint consistency. That's why I always recommend it. Because it's hard to learn paint consistency on a wet palette when your paint is always changing. So, like I said, for people who really love wet palettes, definitely go back to one. But you'll get better mileage out of it after you learn kind of what your paint consistency should look like for different effects. So we'll go in with our white, and we're going to highlight a lot of these facets. Probably going to tune a fair amount of our highlights, make sure that they're where they should be. Hey, Scrying Eye, how's it going? Yeah, that's good, Jabberwock. Well, then you have lots of examples to copy, assuming she lets you touch her touch her jewelry. My favorite pendant that David got me is actually it's not a gemstone at all, which is funny because I really love like solitaire gemstone or combined gemstone pendants, but David got me one that's oxidized silver with little tiny gold nuggets. That's trees with the nuggets being the leaves turning in the fall. They're beeches, I think. It's a beautiful pendant. It's actually a little work of art. He is a very good boyfriend. He asked me lots of questions to ascertain my taste before he went off. Cunningly led me through many jewelry stores to learn the sort of thing I liked. He's a keeper, so they say. Hey, Orion. How's it going? Yeah, Rella, well, and if it works for you, that's fine. Like, I mean, sometimes, though, keep in mind that going back to the paper plate, I mean, it'll allow you to go a certain distance, but because it's absorbing the water content from your paint, it's also changing your paint consistency. So if you are interested, if you ever get interested in doing things like smooth blending, you're probably going to want all those fancy palettes. Just as a guess, just from my own basic experience. It's kind of like the people who are like, yeah, well, I painted with craft paint and I want a golden demon. And it's like, yeah, you certainly can do it. You can absolutely take an inferior product and get a superior result out of it by learning to use it really well so that you minimize its downsides and emphasize its upsides, right? But that said, you really are the equivalent of what you're doing is tying a hand behind your back. You're like, I can make this work, instead of, oh, but this would make it so much easier if I just put in a little time to understand how it worked. But it's all in what your goals are. If you just like painting and a paper plate works for you as a palette, rock it. Rock on with your bad self. But then if you come to me asking why your blending isn't smooth, I'm going to look at you and tell you need to change your palette. All right, so this is a big broad surface, and this is a good place to put a fracture. So let's see. What do we got? It's kind of in the shadow side, so I don't want to do too much. But I think I'll suggest that there's a little bit of a break here. Just get a little bit of a breakage going on there. And then I'll probably put a shadow. Yeah, using both. I use old yogurt container lids. Yep. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, the base rule is try everything, right? Figure out what works for you. That's always going to be the base rule. Although I usually recommend people try both well and wet palettes so they can figure out which one works better for them. So I'm putting a dark line right under all my white to create the drama that I need to make those kind of come out, those features that I just put in. I'm going to come in and highlight. Right. Kariniko's got it. Yeah. I mean, you can use anything for anything. You will figure out a way to make it work. But when you switch to good products, you're going to level up instantly. Like, it's going to give you, again, as Kariniko says, it'll give you a +5 on your crafting roll. Because, I mean, these things are created to enable you to make it easier, right, for you. So, like using a really good brush, like the one I'm using, is going to right away give you, like, much better brush control than you think you had. Because before, you were just using a crappy brush. And yeah, you could paint really well with that crappy brush, but the minute you actually, spend the money and switch to a nice brush, it makes it easier for you. So, again, it comes back to what are your goals? If you're just enjoying painting and you're fine with what you're doing, rock on. But if you try to get better and you run into problems, do question the materials that you use if they seem to be the things getting in the way. This looks like a crack. This part here, I'm going to bring that down. There, I'm going to make that a crack. Yeah, a well palette. I mean, I like mine because it's tiny wells, Orion. It's got 28 tiny wells. It's a porcelain. The porcelain is key. You always want to get porcelain or ceramic palette if you're going to get a well palette, because it makes it cleanable. If you're using plastic or steel, it's just the paint's just going to stick. It's going to be frustrating and get dirty and filthy, and you won't want to use it. Using the wells, I like the 28 well palette because the wells are smaller. So when I thin my paint, I can use less paint, but my paint will stay at the right consistency. Y'all notice I haven't added water for the last 40 minutes or so because I haven't needed to. My paint stayed exactly the way I needed it to be. So everything's changing here now. Now we can see, now they're looking a lot more like gemstones because I'm picking out the larger gems and I'm going, more in depth on them and making an effort. Yeah, porcelain's the way to go, Orion Noir. It's not, a plastic well palette costs you $1 or $2, and one of these will cost you like $7 or $8 or $5 if you catch it on sale, because Cheap Joe's Art Supplies has been having a sale on them for, a while now. So it's only going to cost you a few more bucks, and you'll be able to clean it and get it perfectly clean with a minimum of effort. Like, seriously, hot water, a little bit of soap, and a green scrubby pad, and you're done. And you don't even really need to be scrubbing at it very long. You just need to, put the hot water and a little bit of soap in the palette and let it sit for, 5 minutes, and then bring your green scrubby in, and it's pretty effortless. So yeah, it's worth it. I get mine from Cheap Joe's. If you, I think it's !tools, it'll give you the link. But yeah, I hate plastic palettes. I hate them with a flaming purple passion. Because they're just impossible to clean. And I'm somebody who really likes having a clean surface to work with. So I learned from an early age when I was in the 4-H painting project in my town, and I had to use a plastic palette for acrylic paints, and I just hated it. It really contributed to me not giving acrylics the benefit of the doubt for a lot of my adult life. I'm going to try to get closer on this and more in focus, guys. Hold on. There we go. I'm seeing a fault in the surface of this, and so I'm going to emphasize it. Whenever you see a little fault in the plastic or a little bobble or something, with gemstones, it's so easy. Just make it a feature. Like, this had a little bit of an offset where the plastic didn't quite cure along this line, and so all I'm going to do is bring in some white and make that an actual fracture. You can do that, Valandar, but man, that just takes so much longer, and you'll never get it perfectly clean. If you do, you're spending a lot of time on getting it perfectly clean. I just hate it. I'd rather pay my $8 and get one that I can clean effortlessly, and also that has the smaller wells. The smaller wells are key if you paint like me. Like, they really are key, guys, because those bigger well palettes probably hold double the fluid of one of these, and that's not a plus. Because when you're mixing drops of paint in, and you're going with like 6 to 8 drops of paint, because remember, I started with 4 drops and I added 2 drops of water, right? So when you're doing that, 6 drops or 8 drops of paint is going to stay at the right consistency in these little wells really easily. But the more surface area you have open, the faster it's going to dry out. So you're going to have to be constantly adding water to keep it at the right consistency for what you're doing. I mean, I'm still working, and I haven't, added any water to these guys. And that's what the beauty of the well palette is, that it allows you to do that. Wet palette will not allow you to do that. You will not get a consistency. Yeah, I think it's a different branch growing eye, but it should work fine. Whoa. That's weird. That guy is weird. Whoever that guy is, weird. I mean, to each your own, but whatever. I mean, I clean mine every day, and it's just peachy and shiny and awesome. Why on earth would I want to prime it and no longer be able to clean it? I don't understand, everybody. I'm scared. Help. Sometimes I just don't understand painters. I mean, I can tell you at least using science and physics why you should do a thing and why it works. But sometimes, you know, people just gotta be people. I just don't understand. So now I'm bringing up the highlights on the edges. I need to edge that gem, get the facets picked out more so that it's looking right with all the rest of them. Yeah, I don't ever use the lid. I put cling wrap over the top. Cling wrap is going to give me a better seal, and sometimes I can leave it for like 2 or 3 days, and the cling wrap will keep the paint good. Let's see. Okay, more things. More facets, more facets. This one has some little triangular facets here and there. You don't have to be perfect with your lines either. You can just block them in and then come back and fix them up. Like with that big gemstone there. So there, I need a dark one there. Yeah, I mean, if I can leave my palette for a few minutes. I mean, if I have to leave it for 15 or 20 minutes, it's going to be fine. Don't stress. You'll figure it out. Hey, pay attention to your tools, you know, right? If you walk away for an hour and your paint is really goopy and bad and you can't bring it back, don't be surprised if it's in a well palette. But if you have to go to the bathroom or take the dog out for 10 minutes, it's not like your paint is going to instantly compromise. I mean, if you live in a really arid climate, it might, but then in that case, I would adapt by using bigger paint puddles. I would just put more paint into the palette so I can add more water. And with a big paint puddle, even in an arid climate, it's going to be fine. Rate of evaporation, like if you're maximizing your fluid volume and you're minimizing your surface area, that's when you can control and slow your rate of evaporation. That's why the smaller well palette works. There's some nice big gems back here to play around with. Some fun surfaces. Now I have to really watch it because I don't want to get too light back here because I'm supposed to be probably, though actually, considering these guys are dark, these guys, that guy is probably lighter, but I've got too much white there. Still, I'll get the sides at least mocked in. This one has a lot of breaks and fractures back here, i.e. Maybe places the sculpt didn't fill well or something. So this one has a lot of different little places that kind of suggest breaks. So I'm just going to take advantage of that and make them broken. Yeah, more paint. Yeah, it's more paint, Amy. It's just that. Like, more paint, more water. If you're using this palette, at least 8 to 10 drops if you're in a desert. figure out your ratios accordingly. Go for it. It'll be fine. Or use Rhonda's trick. If you have to step away, put a damp sponge over the top of the wells. Just keep a big, kitchen sponge. Dip it in a little water. All it needs to be is damp, just not wet, and just put it over the top of the wells. It'll keep it wet. Then you can step away for half an hour and not worry about it. And the dampness of the sponge will mean that your paint's at exactly the same place as when you stepped away. So it's all like, and that's a Rhonda trick, right? So now I'm going to add some water to my indigo because it's getting a little goopy around the edges. When you notice a little bit of tackiness and drying gumminess around the edge of the well, that's when you know it's time to add a drop of water, or in my case, a brush full of water. Just add a little bit and mix it up. But my white is still pretty good, and my pale purple mixture is still pretty good. So I'm going to keep that the way it is. Boop. Yeah, it's all just learning. I mean, it's getting a feel for the paint, and it's, you're never failing. You're just learning. Like, it really is. Just come to it with a, oh, dang, my paint dried out again. I really need to get bigger puddles, and, leave yourself a big sticky note over your palette for the next day. Use bigger puddles. And leave it on there until you kind of just instinctually go for bigger puddles. All right. What's up, Q dog? You okay? There we go. I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. I'm looking forward to today. I can do some, since I don't have the afternoon stream, I'm going to catch up some of my nano writing. Probably do a little bit on the World Anvil as well. And I need to do some stuff for the Patreon after I get my writing in. It's going to be a good day. Or it'll be a good day as long as my little dog stops, like exploding. Right, little dog? Yeah? You want to stop exploding? You a good girl. She says, I'm kind of horfy. Do you need to go out and see David? It looks like she might be thirsty. Let me open the door for her, guys. I'm going to let her out real quick. Twisted Oma, when she falls, she kind of like can hurt her hips if her legs land wrong. Because she's got arthritis in her hips. She has good hips. Like, we had her hips done long ago and she came right back rated good. But you're an old dog. You're going to get some arthritis. One second while I open the door for her, guys. Hey, Kiki here. I'm going to open the door and let you escape. You need some drink? Go ahead and get a drink. Go ahead and get your water. Yeah. Yeah, you can go out and get your water. I trust you. You've been a good girl all stream. Yeah, that's my good girl. She's definitely getting older, guys. I still think she'll see her 13th birthday in January. But I'm definitely trying to look at dog lift harnesses just in case I have to get her up and down the stairs manually. Oh, nice. Haha, work on your pile of shame. No, it's the pile of lost love. You're not shamed. You've just temporarily lost love. That's what we call it in this house. Mertoid. It doesn't mean that you won't fall in love with them again, but you shouldn't shame yourself about it. I am just getting some of these little highlights now on these little gems. Just a tiny little spot highlight here and there. That tells the eye that they're, catching light. So we've got some of that going on there. Yeah, curious. I mean, she's an old girl. She's an old girl. Yeah, my space is a mess and it's really annoying me, Chibi. I really, really need an IKEA intervention very, very badly. I've managed to deal with some of it through just being mindful about, put my paints back if I'm not going to use them again after a lesson, stuff like that. Or after I've been working on a project. I can always get them out again. I don't need to leave them lying around, I used to hate like having to get everything out and put it back after everything, but lately I'm just like, no, I need to get most stuff off my desk so that I don't feel too overwhelmed. So all right, so our gems are starting to look really more like gems. As I work on this guy especially, it's really starting to come out. Working on this one over here now. I've got to bring out these facets. Yes, no exorcisms. Yes, let's not, no Ghostbusters scenarios here. Yeah, Kiri's just... Sometimes her rear legs are pretty weak, and we just have to... I gave her kind of a break this morning. We didn't take our big walk. We usually take a walk around the park in the morning, but because she kind of hurt herself, I was like, no. So it's just the old dog. The old dog is old. But I've had her a lot of years now, so she's had a pretty good run. She's been a show dog and a mom to a bunch of very cute puppies. And a companion to me. Just getting some of these gems figured out. As you can see, as I block in more shadows and as I add the lines that define the facets, they look more and more like gems. 8675309. Oh my gosh! Oh, 80s reference. 80s song reference. Oh, wow. Yeah, I hate that dragon. I hate when my paint area gets all cluttered up. Oh, it's just terrible. It just drives my motivation right out of me. I have to stop and clean it up. I made some steps, but then NaNoWriMo hit, and I'm like trying to focus more on the writing. And I have kind of slacked on cleaning some things off of my table that I really need to clean off of my table. There we go. We are getting better and better. I need to add, definitely, you can, when you look at it, once you have a few of the gems blocked in with lights and darks, like this guy right here, who looks lovely, then you can really see, like when you've got a gem that you really haven't done that with, like this one, you can really see the lack. Yeah, because these guys, like this guy and that guy and that guy, look really good, although this guy maybe is a little bit too dark on that big facet. I need to bring in some more light. Oh, Christmas wrapping. Thank God most of my family are gift cards this year, I think. The kids, I'm not sure about. I might be able to get them something, but it's hard to buy for the kids because they've got a lot of relatives on my sister-in-law's side, and so any list that we get is usually instantly gobbled up by those relatives. So usually I have to be inventive or just do gift cards for my niece and nephew. Not that they dislike gift cards. I mean, hey, they can actually buy what they want, so they have a great appreciation for the Amazon gift card. It does mean my wrapping is a lot easier. Usually just a gift bag with some pretty tissue paper. Need to bring this up a little bit lighter. Bring some more light in on this side. That's better. That looks better. Yeah, now my challenge is to go and get us a hotel for Thanksgiving if we're going to drive to Arizona to see my family. It's my next to-do list item. My parents just drove back down to Arizona from Wisconsin. Dad was sending us pictures of all the various, you have entered, welcome to New Mexico, stuff from like that yesterday. So hopefully they made their trip safely with no incident. Wisconsin is where they were, so I'm kind of happy that they're getting out of there with the way that COVID's been spiraling up there. My parents are both in their 70s. This is looking a lot better, guys. This is looking a lot more gemstone-y, isn't it? Compared to when we started, when it was just all blocked in. We're getting there. You're going to wrap those very carefully, yes. Oh, that's true. Yeah, Visa cards is a good idea, Murtoid. Kind of thinking I need a new computer, so I may ask for gift cards that I can use on that. Since my gaming system that I've got all my Patreon stuff on and streaming stuff on is a little bit old in the tooth. Long in the tooth. Let's see here. Where's my light? There we go. So with these smaller ones, we're just going to do little bits. Thank you, Kerniko. Yeah, it'll be interesting, Rex. I suppose that if I get a clear one, I don't know if I ordered one. I don't think I did because I had the resin. But maybe I'll get one later, and we can see how we can, if we can do this technique on those gemstones in translucent. Probably should be able to if you use clears. Get something like it. Although with the clear, you really, at that point, it's like, are you just going to let it be clear, or are you going to try to limit where light enters so that you can make the clear plastic act like actual gemstones? From every angle, right? Because otherwise you're at the mercy of whatever your light source is. If you're just using the clear plastic to suggest the gems. Which is fine if you want that. So. But I think it would be interesting to try to see how effectively you could paint it with these sort of techniques. I think I got too much white on that area. There, it's getting a little better. My family kind of like didn't originally believe in gift cards, but then we all live so far from each other over the holidays, and it is difficult, like I said, for the niece and nephew. Just they've got so many relatives on my sister-in-law's side that, I mean, there's, even with kids, there's a finite, number of things that they put on their Christmas list. So sometimes I've been clever. I did get them both miniature painting kits one year. I should get, I think Graham just got into D&D this year. So I should get him something geeky. Yeah, they did. I mean, my niece, Lauren, she's the older of the two, and she's in her teens now. She's got other stuff to do, right? She did try it. She works with canvas a lot more. But I expect Graham is more my kind of nephew. He likes video games, Overwatch, and others, and and he just started playing D&D, and so he's got the geek streak that his Auntie Anne has. So he actually was very interested in it. So, but now that they've actually tried it, Ratoid, you can always come back to it, right? You can always come back to it. Lauren has never been the geekier one. She's always been a little bit more, I think, the athletic one. But But it's a hobby that you can come back to. And so once you know it exists, there's always the chance that down the road you run into it again and go, oh yeah, I used to do that because Auntie Anne used to do that. You know. Once you start them, it's all about just getting the awareness of the hobby out there, I think. Because we embrace kids so much in our industry, I think that there's no doubt that miniature painting is going to be around as a hobby for a nice long time. So that's looking really good from the top now, guys. I like it. We got a bit more work to do from the back, but even the back is looking a lot better now that we've got. See, it just takes a few big gems, done well to carry the effect across a lot of them. And here, of course, you've also got these. I need to work a little bit on the back side of this gem and that one, but Graham's around 12 and Lauren's 16. So they're spread out actually about the same as me and my brother were, which is funny. My brother and I were 3.5 years apart. But yeah, I definitely did not want my niece and nephew to go without being exposed to the geekery that I love. So I was the good, crazy Auntie Anne. Although my brother is definitely was not a nerd, was definitely more of a jock in school and stuff like that, and was never not a geek, right? But even my brother remembers me running a D&D game for him when he was really quite little, you know, and I think that made him more receptive to Graham getting interested in it, because he remembers it and he had a lot of fun. He had a lot of fun when I ran it for him. So geekery never goes unrewarded. Trying to get your nieces and nephews into geekery is it's always a good tactic. There we go. All right, there we go. Just touched a little bit more purple on some of these guys. I'm going to bring lighter purple onto this one because we definitely don't have a lot of purplish going on this little guy. That's a little better. Bye, Dragon Eye. Yeah, I got to end. I started a little late, so I agree, Saltor. Corrupting the next generation is highly important to our geekliness's continued survival. Geeks rule the earth. Just going to do a little highlight here. Probably this facet would be the one that got the highlight. So just bringing in a little more on this one on the shoulder. Then we need to outline our facets. Since this one is kind of apart a little bit, I want to spend a little extra time on it. Even though it's not really, doesn't stand up, it's not as big as a lot of these other facets, but putting a little bit of time into it because it's standing out is a good idea. There. That's looking pretty good. I still, like I said, I need to work a little bit more on that one. But overall, I think this was a pretty successful gemstone day. Need to get a little bit stronger lines on that one. Yeah. A little bit more. There. That looks actually really good. And then the side, you always want to turn it each side, 360 degrees and stop at the compass points. Because you're always going to have this little gem. I couldn't really see it behind this one from the back, and it totally doesn't have anything really on it. So I need to stop and put more work onto it. I at least need to outline all the facets. and make more of a highlight up here. And that's starting to look a little better. Get maybe a little bit more purple down here and a little bit more purple here. This guy needs more of a facet here. So I always want to kind of double check. Make sure you've got your lining and your highlights and some of your like little like marks if you want to suggest that there's, you know, been abrasions or weapons swung against these crystals and they've got like patterns or chips in them. Then you need to add in some of that scatter look. That's a bummer, Murtoid. When you know what color you're trying to find, you know it must be here somewhere, but you just can't find it. So yeah, I've got this one needs, this area needs a little bit more, and then we'll start calling it. I just want to be able to look at this from every direction and say, all right, this is pretty decent. So this is the troubleshooting phase. That's better. Okay, that looks decent now. That's looking decent. I still need to do a lot of little bits on the head just to bring them a little bit more. I think I need more shading to bring out each little gem a little bit more. But now when you look at it, and then this side is still like mostly in shadow. So I need to work on it, but it's not bad. Like I need to bring up now my highlights because the light's going to be pooling in some of the undersides on these gems. So I need to bring up some highlights back here like this one to make them look better. But even then, like I can do that when we do this arm and will be great. So let's zoom out and take a look at it from a distance. And that's where we are today. We made a lot of gemstone progress. I need to decide at some point on the colors that I'm going to be using down here. I know this is going to be bone colored, but I haven't decided on like his, this is probably leather, and there's a cork up here, but I haven't decided on the cloth color. The cloth color probably should go like a dirty brownish purple or something that calls to the purple up here because we've got a lot of purple here, purple, purple. I guess we're going to have purple down here too. So I could go with a neutral for this. There's a lot of shadows around it. So, one color I could do, actually, if I wanted to go leather with it or wanted to go brown, like neutral, the cunning thing to do would be to highlight that leather with goblin skin so that we're looking at this orange here. So to kind of mimic, like if I make this leather here to make it all like goblin skin highlighted. Or if I go with the fur, brown, dark brown fur to highlight it with this goblin skin. You want to kind of repeat colors. So I'm kind of debating what I want to do. But overall... Yeah, that's true. Order another bottle, or pick up another one from the game store in the old days, right? And then the lost bottle will reappear. Good, Murtoid. Yeah, the Goblin Pyros are good. They're good other source lighting, object source lighting models. That's what David used to use for his lighting classes until he switched to the Snack Lady. All right, I think we're good, guys. I think I've made up for all the late start. So, how about it, Justin? Who was out there?
Let's see here.
And do you like my troll? Because, like...
I do. I love it.
I like my troll.
It's the color depth is always amazing on the stuff that you paint, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
That's my personal like of everything that you paint is seeing all of the, almost like the adaptive blending, I expect almost an HDR of color, as it were.
Ah, interesting. That's cool. Thanks. Yeah, guys, I hope you had a good time on this stream today. I think tomorrow we might go and work more on Duelist. I am in the mode of trying to get things done more, so we'll probably be working on models that we have a fair bit. Although I do want to go back to Sphinxy. I want to go back to Sphinx and do fur. So we'll see probably a slight mixture of models. But I do want to not forget this guy because, like I said, he's so close to being done that I really feel like I want to push him. Like, it's after you get over that part where you're bored with the model, where you can just see that the end is coming and you're really excited about it. I'm at that point with this model, so yes, yes. Hasta la vista. Who are we rating?
All right, we're gonna be rating. You know what? We're gonna be rating Sky Daddy because she's actually painting up one of my favorite X-Men characters.
Really? Who?
Yes, she is painting up Mystique.
Oh, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, guys, remember to go say hi to Sky. She's a fantastic body painter, and the shadows and highlights that she does on her skin, you can also use on miniatures. It's always useful. So have fun and say hi to Sky for us, all right? And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thank you guys very much. Keep being awesome, and I will see you guys this afternoon for the premiere of Luca's show at about 3 p.m. Thank you guys very much.